I've recently seen a trend where people are deleting Goodreads. They are confident that other platforms will do what Goodreads has failed to do for a very long time, especially when it comes to implementing user feedback. Here are some examples.
I want to talk about why Goodreads has failed its users and why, even though it's hard to leave, more and more readers are starting to feel the same way.
And Goodreads, quite frankly, makes it very easy to hate them because there is so much wrong with Goodreads and their platform. They make it easy.
It is also the only app that I have really determinedly quit using, and I will not go back to using again.
Well, I deleted Goodreads 3.5 going on 4 years ago. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my experience of deleting this reading tracking app from my life. Then I'm going to comment on why the alternatives aren't really solving the issues I personally had with Goodreads when I got rid of it, and mention why I don't think Goodreads is going to be supplanted by any of these other reading apps. So in 2022, I was fully immersed in reading culture. I still am now, but I do think that there is a huge distinction. From the years of 2019 to 2022, I really fell into the online reading rabbit hole. I was super into BookTube and I wanted to read every book that everyone else was reading. I wanted to have people to talk about books with, and the online platform seemed to be the perfect place to do that. And apparently, this introverted hobby of reading I have had my entire life is one where you can actually engage with other people and have social interaction. And even though I am definitely an introvert, apparently introverts need social interaction too. So the idea of being able to combine books with community was amazing for me. So I watched BookTube and I got on Goodreads. On the surface, there's really nothing wrong with that, but I quickly learned how putting something on the internet and making it almost a social media type thing can distort any hobby. The way people started really focusing on their own personal book goals, and the way people joined every hype train for every popular release and every popular book really got to me, and I fully immersed myself in that culture. My 40 to 50 book a year numbers at that point before the internet seemed like complete rookie numbers. And not only did I need to read more, but apparently I was reading the wrong books because none of the books I had read previously were a hit on Goodreads. So I changed what I read, I followed the trends, and I upped the amount of books I read a year. And on Goodreads, I could become part of the cool bookish crowd. I could mark my books as read and let other people see not only what I was reading, but my thoughts about those popular books. I could also create an extensive TBR of all the books people were hyping up and make sure I got to all of the important books that everyone was talking about over time. It could show how well read I was, and I set these lofty goals to be a real reader and to feel like I was correctly engaging with the bookish community and making sure I was reading the right things that would get me conversations. So I did that. I found what was popular on Goodreads. I marked it as to be read. I read those books that everyone was talking about, and then I would turn around and occasionally review those popular books on YouTube. But that got exhausting after a while, and I'm not saying that there are not people who authentically want to read all the popular books and who authentically are super happy with the system the way that we have it set up right now. There are people who are. Like, I had a hard time with it, but there's other people who do it and they love what they do. But for me, I didn't leave Goodreads 3.5, 4 years ago because I felt like the platform was deaf to user feedback or because I thought I could find a better reading tracking app. There really weren't any at the time that I felt would replace them. I just felt like the social mediaification of reading got to me a little bit. It was really hurting the ability I had to enjoy my lifelong hobby and to really become the individual that I am and read what I specifically wanted to read. And as a side note, when I really kind of fell into that hole, I was in my early 20s, so of course it's a lot easier when you are at that age to fall into that, but I mean, it could easily happen again at any age. Well, ultimately, what it caused in me was it made me choose books for the wrong reason, and it took a lot of the joy and fun out of reading. The second I realized I wasn't going to reach the lofty Goodreads goal, whatever it was that I set in 2022, if I read long books that I actually wanted to read, was the second I decided, okay, this has gone too far. I don't want my reading app telling me what to read so that I can mark more books off as read and have the higher number. So I deleted it, and the amount of reading that I did dropped drastically. It went way down. There's definitely something to having goals and setting some sort of external reminder to yourself of something you want to do. I'm not saying there isn't, and there's a lot of people who use these tools really well. I probably wasn't one of them. And I feel like part of the reason my reading dropped so drastically after deleting Goodreads is that I had burned myself out. I was exhausted from all of the reading I was low-key forcing myself to do. Not completely. I kind of wanted to read a lot of these books. But if you think of like the books I really wanted to read, a lot of the times I'd be reading books I kind of wanted to read in order to talk about them with more people. So it probably did take me a couple years to get back to that pre-internet reading pace that I had set before I even really was serious about Goodreads in the first place. I also started tracking books on Fable, and Fable does have a pretty good book tracking interface, and I really do enjoy that for my own little personal book tracking bubble. But I'm never going back to caring about my book stacks like I did before, just because I know that I don't have the personality to be able to make it meaningful. And even though I track books on Fable, when I want to see what other people think on a book and I want it to be quick and I don't want to look up YouTube videos and I want to be kind of snappy with a quick judgment, I do go to Goodreads. When it comes down to it, Goodreads still has the biggest user base. And if you think about it, all these people who are leaving Goodreads aren't even all going to the same place. There's a big segment of the community that is drifting over to Fable, and another one that's going to Storygraph, and then there's a bunch of small little reading tracking apps that are also trying to gain traction in this period of decentralization, where a lot of serious readers and reviewers are wanting to leave Goodreads to go somewhere else, which leaves Goodreads as still the indisputably biggest app and probably will be for the foreseeable future. And both Storygraph and Fable are objectively better at tracking your individual reading than Goodreads. I support them and I like what they're doing, but they still fall into that trap of social mediaification of reading that I just personally have come to the point where I don't really enjoy. I'm sorry to say it, and I don't want to be mean, but I don't really care about your Storygraph or your Fable stats if you can't have a conversation on a book you've read or on a genre you enjoy. I think that's what annoys me the most. All the frills we have added to these apps that are supposed to be engaging and get us to talk more as a community about books and share ideas sometimes do the exact opposite of what they are supposed to do. They can discourage deeper conversation and make us a little bit less creative, because a lot of people just do star ratings and then they point to their stats as if that is discussing literature. And here's the thing, I don't care if you've read 300 books this year or if you've read 5. I want to know what you think and what you've learned and what you can contribute. Oftentimes, people who read fewer books might have the bigger ideas. Not necessarily a thing, but it could be a thing. Reading apps should enhance what we're sharing with each other. But oftentimes when people get all these personalized stats all about them, it can do the exact opposite, detracting from the conversation as people just point to a bunch of flashy numbers that are supposed to be indicative of who they are as a reader and who they are as a person, but they didn't actually curate any of those ideas to share with us about who they are as a reader and who they are as a person. And yes, I use Fable, and I like Fable, and I like these apps, and I think people should have reading tracking apps if they want to keep track of what books they read. It's a good way to do it. But I don't obsess over my stats or my ratings anymore, and I don't care how long it takes me to read a book or what you see when you look at my profile on Fable. And honestly, I don't think you care that much about my stats either. You might care about your own, but you definitely don't care about other people's or mine. Maybe I've read 30 books this year. Maybe I've read 150 books this year. Does that change how much you like or dislike this video? You've probably already made up your mind on my opinion based off of what you think on this topic, not based off how much I've read. And I used to think that yes, that number mattered and I had to prove myself to you. But now I just don't think it matters what you have as a reader on these platforms, as long as when you get in front of the camera, or as long as when you're typing out a review or saying something, you're actually saying something meaningful that people want to either watch or read. Also, I just looked it up and apparently that number is 59. I've read 59 books this year. I didn't know that because I don't care. Anyway, this is by no means revolutionary or a new idea, but I don't think Goodreads is going away despite the exodus that we've been seeing from the app to other apps like Fable or Storygraph. I left it years ago and I still find myself browsing Goodreads several times a month. I can't keep away completely even though I don't use it myself. And it's simple, it's just because it has the majority of the market and it holds the majority of reviews. So when you want to see what the average person is thinking of a book and you want to see the most varied reviews, you go to Goodreads. Even on Fable, even though I really liked the app, oftentimes the same book is put on the app multiple times, so people are reviewing the same book in different areas of the app, which is annoying because that doesn't give you a cohesive view of the total, and there just aren't as many reviews yet, even if that weren't a problem. Most casual readers, the ones who are not deep into internet bookish culture, are not leaving Goodreads and are not joining Storygraph or Fable. And a lot of people who are intense readers and reviewers are using both. A lot of people have not abandoned Goodreads to go to Fable. They're doing 3 tracking apps, which is too much for me. I can barely handle one. But I'm just saying, like, the platform is going to be Goodreads for the foreseeable future unless something huge happens. And that'd be cool if it did. But I wouldn't just throw it away just yet and think that you can just 100% switch. If you want to know what the majority of people are thinking, you're still going to have to at least be a lurker on Goodreads occasionally. I do think this current wave of Goodreads critique is tapping into something deeper though. People are generally dissatisfied with the way we talk about books online. A lot of people blame the clunky user interface and the lack of implementing reader ideas into an app like Goodreads, but when you really think about what they're saying, they're wanting something deeper from the online reading experience. When they're asking for things like quarter and half stars, or the ability to shelve books as DNF rather than as finished or not finished, they're asking for more nuance to their reviews and way of tracking their books. And that's very surface level, but I think it goes a lot further than that. Maybe we don't always love the way that we've learned to talk about books online and how we have set it up to this point in time. Maybe all these little shortcuts and hacks and social strategies for talking about books have detracted from the way we talk about books altogether. Even if the design is better, I don't think Storygraph and Fable fully solve this issue of having a hard time having meaningful conversations online. They're just better general reading tracking apps. And they're trying really hard. I've seen Fable try so many different community engagement things, and I want them to work. I love how they have book clubs set up, and I love all the little design things that they're implementing into their environment that Goodreads doesn't have. But even with that, it hasn't taken off yet, and people are not having the meaningful conversations they desire, so they keep scrolling and looking for more because they're not finding it. Maybe the real fix is honestly choosing quality over quantity. I do not care about your reading streak. I think mine is like 2 because I went on a little weekend trip. What I do care about is if you have something to say and if you have something to post in the comments of this video. Thanks for humoring me and letting me rant. Bye.